Very good evening, friends. This is Rahul Magan here as a Group Chief Executive Officer, Treasury Consulting, and also a venture capitalist. As we speak on 12th July 2021, I'm going to be starting a new dimension in my life. And that new dimension is nothing but the audiobooks. You know that, how it works. Like And in this audiobook, which is precisely of 15 to 20 minutes, I would be covering a very important topic, which is what is happening across the banking sector, and that too across the globe. You know that I worked as a corporate registrar for American companies for almost 10 years. Started 2007 until 2016, I worked. And as a corporate registrar, I dealt with almost all American banks. After that, I started my career, and God is kind that without having a single cent from any venture capitalist, Treasury Consulting is right here as a 100% cash rich group. But when I started in 2007, market was not what it is today. Example, in 2005 something, around 1.5 to $5 trillion, between 1 to 1.5 trillion dollars worth of FX derivatives or spot or options is being sold or bought, practically traded every day. If we go with the latest survey by BIS, which is Bank for International Settlement, the scene is completely different. It is around 6.5 trillion, which means from 2007 till 2021, it is almost almost five times. And it is growing because these surveys are conducted on triennial basis, which means once in every 3 years. Now, the next survey, if I'm not wrong, is around 2022. Markets are also changing at the faster pace. Like when we started, the world was not having electrification of capital market. Electrification of capital market is happening at a much faster pace, and unfortunately, I'm not saying that this pace is right or this pace is wrong, but I'm not happy with the content which is coming in the public domain. The pace might be very good, but the content may not be very good. Example, in 2007, when we started, the world was having Thomson Reuters, of course, Bloomberg. But in the last 10-12 years, we saw that there are many electronic trading avenues that came into the public domain. Few of these electronic trading avenues are eventually bought up by Bloomberg and Reuters by paying a very hefty price, but few still exist. And to be honest, out of those who exist, they are striving very hard, and very few are successful, to be honest. In 2019 onwards, world saw another fancy thing which is called robo advisory. Now, what the hell is robo advisory? Which means that it's just like a quant trading, which practically means that somebody basically a computer is going to be managing the show for you. He would be letting you know what stocks to buy and what not. And now what is happening is blockchain. We know that when we speak about blockchain, the first thing that comes to our mind, of course, always is Elon Musk and people like Elon Musk, those who are giving hype to Bitcoin. Because whenever we speak about blockchain, the first thing that comes is a Bitcoin. But that is practically incorrect because blockchain is much, much, much larger component as compared to what Bitcoin is. Rather, I say Bitcoin is a subset of blockchain. Or rather, I should say that Bitcoin is a very, 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 very small portion of what blockchain is. And at the same point of time, I would also like to agree that blockchain not yet done with the full credentials, which means that the complete potential of the blockchain not yet exploited due to multiple reasons. Number one is definitely people are less interested in blockchain. Very limited text is available on the Google, although there are so many guides, but more or less it is Control C, Control V. Plus, there is a negative perception which is being set in the mind of the people, which is that blockchain means Bitcoin and Bitcoin means fraud. But the hard reality is that Bitcoin is just a very small subset of blockchain. It has nothing to do that even if today Bitcoin is wind up for a minute, assuming, then blockchain would continue. But guys, keeping this as a backdrop, there are humongous amount of changes which are happening in the banking and the financial market. There is no doubt about that. And I don't think that this change which is happening in the banking and the financial market is incorrect. Though there are substantial changes required in regulatory, like IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, US GAAP, Indian GAAP, and to make sure that the banks across the globe, whenever they share the annual result, the result is supposed to be in line. But if this keep this as a backdrop and compare this with the degree culture, which is right there, it would be very surprised to know that the current degrees, whether it is MBA, Masters in Business Administration, or whether this is BPA, or whether this is CA, Chartered Accountant, CMA, Cost Management Accountant, CS, Company Secretary, or the so-called CFA. You know my definition of CFA, which is Certified Financial Analyst, CPA, FRM. These degrees are not offering where exactly markets are happening. So let's take a very simplistic example. You just go to Google. I hope that everyone who is listening to this podcast, he definitely have one computer and of course having internet. Just go to Google and type 10K. Now in US we call this 10K, which means the annual report. In India we call this as annual report. In Singapore also we call this as annual report. But in US we call this 10K. Just go and download the 10K of the Goldman Sachs. Precisely speaking, you can type JP Morgan also. You can type Citibank, say Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. More than enough. And just go through their page by page, you would get to know that there is a hell lot of material we are having in Goldman compared to what we see in these degrees. Rather, I always say that the 10K of these banks and financial institutions, they are much more than any degree. So if you are anyone, whether you are MBA, BBA, CFA, Certified Financial Analyst, CPA, or probably FRM, CA, then just download the annual report of the Goldman Sachs and just see that how much you understand out of that. And I'm sure that you would get to know what exactly I wanted to convey via this podcast. Henceforth, things are definitely changing. There is no doubt about that. The things are not changing. It is changing. Henceforth, all the young generation who wish to enter into the world of banking, they need to understand that the total quantum of the jobs that were there few years ago, don't expect these jobs there in the banking now. Rather, as we speak, United States is divided into two parts. I'm not telling about the vaccine, but I'm saying that it is divided into two parts, which is after this pandemic, the people are asking when things can be done online, work from home, then why do we need to come to office? We still have few rudimentary and orthodox people who claim that there is still a requirement of 5 days a week. Thankfully, they are not saying 7 days a week. While we still have a bank who are saying 3 days a week is okay, some banks are saying even 4 days a week are okay, like Microsoft trying 4 days a week culture. Henceforth, the banking is moving towards online. Like today, Germany said that the banks in the Germany, they are cutting the office space. And why do they cut the office space? They are cutting the office space because there is no need for the people to come to office. Of course, guys, we need to be practical. It saves a hell lot of cost. It saves hell lot of cost. So if you have 1,000 people working in a one office and if they work online, it do save hell lot of cost. No doubt about that. It's a stupidity that if we tend to ignore this fact that it do not save the cost. It do save the cost, and after all, it do impact the EPS, which is earning per share of the bank, which really matters at the end, to be honest. And but what if this if 1,000 people who used to work from home, now out of 1,000 people, only 500, only 50 to 100 people working from home, and ends up having a great saving for the financial institutions, like in Singapore, Hong Kong, now Germany, in fact US also. Banks are cutting the office locations. They are cutting the jobs also. That's more important. So don't think that the banks are not cutting the jobs. They do. They are cutting the job. Henceforth, in the upcoming time, it would be very, very, very difficult for most of the people to get the banking jobs, because what bank used to be in 2007, banks are not in 2021. They are completely or radically changed. Maybe forced or out of compulsion, difficult to tell. But one big question here is the kind of degrees we are taking, the kind of literature we are studying, the kind of knowledge we want it to be. Is this knowledge sufficient enough to take us the next level of the banking? That's more important. As I promised, I am back on podcast, and this is my first podcast. Probably as soon as I get the time, I keep shooting the more podcasts. YouTube videos are live, Facebook is live, many more things are live. This is Rahul from Treasury Consulting Group. You know our WhatsApp, which is +91 9899242978. Have a great time ahead. Thank you. Thank you, and have a great time ahead.